Hello everybody and welcome to another segment of Cooking with Ellis. Today I'm gonna show you how I make my pizza crust, and then we're gonna use that crust and make my favorite pizza, prosciutto with arugula. This recipe makes enough dough for one 13-inch pizza, or about 13 inches. So we're gonna start with some water, about 3/4, and 1 teaspoon and 1/4 of instant yeast. We're just gonna let that sit in the water for a little bit to get the yeast to activate. It usually needs 5 to 10 minutes depending on the yeast that you're using. You can tell if the yeast has activated once you can see it forming bubbles on the water. In my household, we never order pizza. My mom would always make homemade pizza. This recipe is kind of her recipe that she got from a package of flour that she modified, and then I have modified it further to my liking. Her pizza was always yummy and doughy, but I want a little bit more of a crusty crust, so I have made some alterations to it to my own liking, and I hope it turns out great for you as well. A funny thing about when my mom used to make pizzas for us is that my brother used to eat it all. And I loved pizza leftovers. So what I would do is that I would hide slices of pizza in cookie boxes in our pantry. And now that I have learned about food safety, I know how incredibly reckless that was, and I don't recommend anyone doing that ever again. And now that the yeast has started to bubble and blend with the water and kind of dissolve into the water, I like to give it a little whisk so it's fully immersed. Get all that yummy yeast in there that's gonna make your dough all fluffy and yummy. And it's also gonna help with making the crust be crispy and nice. And into the yeast and water mixture, we're gonna add 1 tablespoon sugar and 1.5 tablespoons of olive oil. And we want to add about 1 tablespoon of salt. And of course, every time I'm cooking the salt, I use molten salt. I love it so much. Crunch it up real good. We don't want clumps of salt in there. We're gonna need about 2 cups of flour. I recommend starting out with 1.5 cups, and then you can just see as the dough forms how much you're gonna need to add. And before you dump all of the flour in there and start running the mixer, I recommend that you add just a sprinkle of the flour and whisk it all together so it just incorporates a bit better. I'm sure in total you're gonna be using almost up to 3 cups of flour. Only so much goes into the dough itself, and then you're gonna need some more for the kneading and forming the crust. Just put a little bit here. Give it a whisk. And then we'll put in the rest and add about that 1/2 cup in there. And let's get this party started. I put my mixer on 2 because you don't want to overwork the dough. It's good to have a spatula handy and give it just like a little smidge of a scrub in there, because we also don't want it to take too long to mix the ingredients together. And then we just want to add more flour once all the flour that is in the bowl has been incorporated. Make sure not to add too much flour, because we want to be able to incorporate the flour that we're gonna do once we are forming the pizza dough and not end up with dough that is way too floury. The consistency you're looking for is not clinging on to the hook, but also not a firm doughy ball, because that's gonna be a nightmare to work with and it's gonna be way too dense. Now that the dough is starting to form a loose ball, we're gonna take the bowl off and incorporate the rest of the flour that is in there and form into a nice loose bowl. Spray it a bit with Pam, or you could use olive oil as well. And we're gonna let it rise for about an hour at least. And you can let it rise longer, it's only gonna be better. Let's not raise it too long, because we're not gonna make this into a sourdough starter. So this is what my dough looks like at the point where I will start to let it rise. You're just gonna wanna take it and swirl it around in the bowl. You wanna have a bit loose fingers when you do it, because you don't want it to stick to your fingers, because it is a bit wet still. Just give it a little sprinkle. Look at that, look, it looks yummy. Grab the dough, little bit of Pam, plop it in there. Put a kitchen towel over it and let it rise for 1 to 2 hours. You could, if you're planning to make your pizza for dinner, you could make the pizza dough in the morning and let it rise in the fridge. It will slow down the process, and the yeast won't eat up the sugars as quickly, and it will be perfect for dinner time. While the pizza dough rises, we can prep the toppings for our prosciutto baby arugula pizza. So you're gonna need about 4 cups of baby arugula, a quarter of a thinly sliced onion, 4 tablespoons of olive oil. You can use extra virgin olive oil. It does give it a really nice kick. It works really well with the baby arugula, and some fresh rosemary. So what we will do is thinly slice the onion. And we're just gonna dump the onion into the arugula. And then into the olive oil, we're gonna crush some garlic. If you're not a big fan of garlic, just use a couple of cloves, but I love garlic. I love everything super garlicky, so I put at least 4. And then we're gonna chop up some rosemary. You're gonna need about half a tablespoon of chopped up rosemary. But honestly, even if you use more, it's gonna be so delicious. Just avoid getting some hard to chew parts in there. Make sure to finely chop your rosemary. Right, now we can put that generous amount of rosemary in here. And some salt and pepper to taste. Yeah, I love salt. I always put way too much salt in everything. Freshly ground pepper. The world's worst pepper grinder. And a smidge of lemon juice. Mix that all well together. So we're gonna drizzle this over the baby arugula and the red onion, but we're gonna want to reserve some to brush the pizza crust with it before we put the mozzarella and Parmesan cheese on top and cook it. Get that, some of that fresh garlic in there. So we will have some fresh garlic in the baby arugula and some cooked garlic on the pizza. And then we just give it a toss. Make sure to really mix the red onion in there so it's evenly distributed in all of the salad. Oops. Yum, 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 yum. And then we'll just store this in the fridge. It's good to let the salad marinate a little bit in this mixture. It just really combines the flavor really well together. It makes it completely perfect. And we're gonna let the dough continue to rise, and I'll see you in a bit. All right, now that the dough has had its time to rise, it's time to make some pizza. I am going to be cooking my pizza on the barbecue on a pizza stone. So I have placed my pizza stone on the barbecue and set it to max. I find it when I do that, I get this perfect, yummy, crispy crust that is slightly charred, that kind of gives it that authentic pizza taste. Ooh, look at that dough. We're just gonna sprinkle the dough with some flour and place it on the countertop that has been cleaned, by the way. And we're gonna form it into a pizza crust. If you have decided to double or triple or quadruple the recipe, I recommend that you evenly divide up the dough and let it rest again for a bit, because otherwise it will be tough to handle and you want it to easily spread out into a crust and not tear apart or be working on it too much, because that way you're gonna lose the fluffiness and the crispiness ratio that you're wanting to achieve. I find it best if you handle the dough as little as possible after it has risen, the better results you're gonna get, because you want the gluten structure to be intact and that allows you to maintain those air pockets that are gonna give the pizza that crispy crust, and like it's just gonna be extra yummy. Just believe me, just do as I say, god damn it. And with this dough, it is so nice to have a nice outside crust on it. And you're gonna want to like just eat that plain, because we're gonna brush it with some of the yummy garlicky, with some of that garlicky yummy olive oil. But if you need a little extra something, you can dip it in marinara, but we're not using any marinara or pizza sauce on this crust. And don't worry too much about making it a perfect round circle, because real pizza shouldn't be a perfect round circle. It should be close, but it's not going to taste any different. Before I place anything on the pizza, because I am putting it on a preheated pizza stone, I want to be able to easily scoop it up with my pizza spatula. I make sure once I've gotten the shape, I will sprinkle it with a generous amount of flour. Give it a good swirl around and slap, and turn it over. And then form the crust. Check if it's right amount of dough for the spatula, because otherwise it's gonna drip over the pizza stone, and instead of being charred, it's gonna burn. I don't like using corn flour or cornmeal for picking up the pizza or like making sure the bottom doesn't stick, because it tends to be too grainy, and like no one likes to biting into a pizza and there's a huge piece of cornmeal in your mouth. So what we're gonna do is brush the pizza with our olive oil, garlic, rosemary, lemon mixture. Get all that yummy fresh garlic on there. The combination of cooked garlic to fresh garlic in our arugula mixture is gonna complement each other so perfectly. I like to get that olive oil mixture there on the sides, because it's just gonna give it a really nice golden look. Make sure that it's as evenly distributed as much as you can. Smells so, that rosemary with the garlic, it smells so good. And we're gonna top it with some mozzarella. I tend to be quite heavy-handed when I put cheese on my pizza. It can be good, but you don't want to go too crazy, because the crust won't bake correctly if you're too heavy-handed. And then we're gonna put some freshly grated Parmesan. Heimdall, shh. Heimdall is trying to get some of the prosciutto. So now it's time to scoop it up and put it on the pizza stone. We're not gonna cook the arugula, like who likes cooked lettuces. And the Parma ham has already been perfectly cured, so it's perfectly safe to eat. So that goes on last. We're gonna do a quick swoop just in case the pizza has started to stick to the countertop, and make sure nothing gets left behind. And then in case the pizza is like slightly bigger than the pizza spatula, just gonna push it in a little bit. All right, time for cooking. Now the pizza has been cooking for about 7 minutes or so on the barbecue. I recommend just keep a close eye on it and see if the underside of the crust is perfectly cooked, the cheese is bubbling, and now it's time to top it with some arugula and prosciutto. It smells amazing. So you just, it's easy from here on out. Put some of the salad on top. I would leave a little bit behind in the bowl because for presentation reasons, like layer some of the arugula on it, layer some of the prosciutto on it, and then some salad on top of it as well. It just looks nice. You only need about 100 grams of prosciutto. I know it sounds like it's not a lot, but that's really all you need. And we're just gonna put it on here so it's evenly on every single bite. Woo. I have a very eager puppy down there that is waiting to just get a little bit of piece of the pie. This really is my favorite type of pizza. It's salty, it's crispy, it is juicy, and it has prosciutto on it. And who doesn't love prosciutto? And garlic, so much garlic. And then we're gonna layer on the rest of the arugula. Every bite is a meal. And then to top it off, some freshly grated Parmesan. Because who doesn't love more salt? Now that looks amazing. And trust me, it even tastes better than it looks. So let's have a bite. It's a little bit of a mess when you cut it, but if you've seen my other video, you know that I love messy food. Looks amazing. The bitterness of the arugula goes so well with the prosciutto and the mozzarella, and It is so delicious to eat a pizza that doesn't have pizza sauce on it, and it's something different. Mm. 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 And the crust is just the perfect combination of doughy and crispy, not too thick, not too thin, just the perfect in between. And freshly grated Parmesan will make literally anything taste better. Like, I swear to God, if you put it on top of your chocolate cake, it's gonna taste better. Mm. Thank you so much for joining me and watching this video and learn how I make my pizza crust and learn about my favorite pizza. My prosciutto arugula pizza is one of my all-time favorite pizza toppings. The only one that comes in very, very close second is my 4-cheese pizza, and it's not the 4 cheeses that you're thinking of. So if you're interested in seeing that pizza, please like, subscribe, let me know down below in the comments, and I will make that happen for you. And as always, you can follow me on Facebook, you can follow me on Instagram, you can follow me on Twitter, and you can follow me on Snapchat. Thank you so much for watching. Adios. Buenas noches.